Everything felt strangely calm when a timid boy was forcibly transferred by his parents to the most notorious delinquent school, and in his heart he was certain that endless bullying awaited him. Yet to his surprise, every delinquent student he met was unexpectedly warm and friendly, smiling as they eagerly competed to show him around the campus. And as he looked at the peaceful school grounds with no sign of violence, a fragile hope quietly grew inside him that maybe his future life here could actually be happy. But just as that thought settled, after school his classmates suddenly dragged him by force to an underground fighting arena. And only then did the truth reveal itself, because all the students who acted gentle during the day were actually coming here at night to fight and vent their aggression. And while he stood frozen in shock, unable to understand what was happening, the student council president noticed the new face and stepped forward with a bright smile, calmly explaining that violence was strictly limited to this specially designated arena, that bullying on campus was absolutely forbidden, and that students were free to enjoy both peaceful school life and the thrill of fighting as long as it stayed here. Yet before the boy could even process her words, she casually shoved him onto the stage, where his opponent turned out to be the muscular first-year boss Kang. And as Kang charged toward him with wild excitement, the boy instantly broke into a cold sweat, because years of cowardice and fear had already scarred him deeply, and under overwhelming psychological pressure his body betrayed him as he suddenly vomited all over Tae Yang's face, shocking everyone present into stunned silence before the entire arena erupted into mocking laughter, turning his so-called welcome ceremony into total humiliation. And by the next day, the whole school already knew what had happened. So fully aware that he truly could not fight, the boy took the initiative to seek out the student council president Jae-min to beg for permission to stop going to the arena. But before he could even finish speaking, his classmates' faces turned pale with horror, as if he had said something forbidden, and Min coldly announced that from that moment on Lee Ji-ho would no longer be protected by the arena's rules, then left without another word. And as Ji-ho returned alone to the classroom, he kept turning those words over in his mind, confused by what it meant to lose that protection, until suddenly Tae Yang appeared with a group of followers, violently grabbing Ji-ho's head and smashing it against the desk again and again, using his fists to explain the meaning far more clearly than words ever could. Because without the arena's protection, Ji-ho had become the only student in the entire school who could be beaten anywhere, reduced to nothing more than everyone's servant and punching bag. And after enduring an entire week of relentless torment, he finally broke, seeking his homeroom teacher to request a leave of absence, believing this would finally end everything. Yet unexpectedly, Minjo was waiting at the school gate to sneer at him, calling him useless trash and mocking his belief that running away could save him, cruelly stating that a coward like him would always be someone else's punching bag because he had no will to protect himself, and still clinging to the belief that it was over. Ji-ho walked home only to find Tae Yang waiting for him again, angrily demanding how he dared to leave without permission and questioning who would serve him and take his beatings now, before dragging Ji-ho into a deserted alley and beating him brutally, then pulling out his phone to slowly recite Ji-ho's home address word for word with a twisted smile, promising to visit often just to play. And at that moment, terror and rage filled Ji-ho's eyes as he demanded to know what Tae Yang really wanted, only to have his face gripped tightly as he was warned that any further resistance would be recorded and spread for everyone to see. And unable to understand why, just as he was about to escape this living hell, these monsters refused to let him go, Ji-ho finally grasped Minho's earlier words in the deepest part of his fear, realizing that to protect himself he had to dare to fight. And with a roar, all the suppressed anger in his heart exploded as he suddenly bit down hard on Tae Yang's palm, making him howl in pain before angrily knocking Ji-ho flying. Yet as Ji-ho wiped the blood from his mouth, he laughed bitterly and mocked him, saying that now he finally understood what pain felt like, and that even if he died he would drag trash like him straight into hell. And knowing he was badly outnumbered as the thugs rushed him, Ji-ho decisively threw the sand he had hidden in his palm, seized the opening, and ran straight toward the arena, where the moment he burst inside he shouted with all his fury that he demanded a fair one-on-one fight with Tae Yang. And upon hearing this, Minho smiled faintly and ordered the space cleared, and as the two climbed onto the stage the crowd went insane. Yet the sheer strength of Tae Yang was terrifying, because from the very start Ji-ho was brutally beaten. But even covered in wounds he refused to look away, and enraged by Ji-ho's unyielding stare, Tae Yang lifted his leg and kicked him violently, sending him rolling across the ground, confidently smiling because no one had ever endured that kick. Yet just as he turned to leave, Ji-ho stubbornly forced himself back up, prompting an impatient warning that if he kept being stubborn he would really be killed. And hearing this, Ji-ho's eyes burned with fury as he declared that this pain was nothing compared to what he had already endured, then suddenly charged forward, grabbing Tae Yang with everything he had and slamming him hard into the ground, raising his fist to smash that ugly face. But Tae Yang struck first with a powerful blow and mocked him for how slow his punch was. And though Ji-ho lacked strength, his courage pushed him beyond fear as he slammed his head straight into Tae Yang's skull, triggering total rage as Tae Yang shoved him away, gritting his teeth to end the farce quickly. But at that moment, Ji-ho's eyes turned bloodshot as a shocking realization hit him, because the bullies he had always feared were actually only this strong. strong. And it was pathetic that he had been tormented by such garbage for so long, and driven by pain and anger he raised his fist to teach them a lesson, only to be instantly struck in the jaw and knocked unconscious. And when he woke up groggily, he found Manhwa watching over him in the arena, only to be told this was his last chance and that after resting, he would be forbidden from entering the arena again. And as Jiho reflected on his life of weakness and humiliation, realizing that even after transferring here he was still being toyed with by Taeyang, he shouted without hesitation that he would not take a break and begged to be taught how to become stronger, prompting Manhwa to smile and state that training the weak was also the student council president's duty, before suddenly punching Jiho hard in the stomach and mocking him for already reaching his limit, warning that this was only the beginning. And the next day, Jiho returned to school clutching his aching stomach, remembering Manhwa's instruction to meet him every break and feeling a flicker of fear, only to run into Taeyang again and be threatened that next time he would truly be killed, igniting a blazing fire in Jiho's chest as he silently vowed to become strong enough to crush this trash with his own hands. And when the class bell rang, he arrived at the rooftop ready to train, only to be beaten until he spat blood. And from then on, he was brutally beaten hundreds of times every day. Yet even when knocked senseless, he never once thought of giving up. And because of the earlier sneak attack, Taeyang often went to the arena hoping to ambush Jiho, but to his growing irritation, he never found him there. In his mind, refusing to enter the arena was no different from refusing to fight at all. And right there, a vicious idea quietly took shape, because if Jiho refused to remain his punching bag, he would exploit the arena rule that no one could reject a fight invitation, turning all those cowards who only dared to watch into his personal toys, making the arena his exclusive playground from now on. Yet Jiho was completely unaware of this brewing malice, and after enduring brutal daytime training, he pushed himself even harder with extra conditioning at night, determined to return to the arena for a fair fight with Taeyang as soon as possible. But suddenly, a motorcycle roared toward him at full speed, grazing his arm in an instant, and before he could react, several biker gang members blocked his path, their leader dressed in black strolling forward with one hand in his pocket, casually accusing Jiho of damaging his precious motorcycle and mockingly offering a discount, demanding compensation of 6 million, and Jiho's eyes widened in disbelief as before he could even protest, the man suddenly punched him hard in the face. Yet as the threats continued, Jiho realized something shocking. He wasn't afraid at all, so he slapped the man's arm away and without hesitation drove his fist straight into his face, because after facing monsters like Manhwa and Taeyang, these trashy thugs meant nothing to him. But in the next second, his wrist was caught tightly as the man sneered sarcastically, asking if Jiho was trying to tickle him, and startled, Jiho began swinging wildly, because all he had learned so far was how to endure pain, not how to attack. And in an instant, he was knocked down by a kick, watching helplessly as the man deliberately slipped metal knuckles onto his hand to increase the damage. And just as Jiho fell into despair with that fist raised above him, a figure suddenly dropped from the air, driving a knee straight into the black-clad man's face and making his nose burst with blood. And when Jiho recognized him, he froze in shock, because it was Jin Haechun, the one who had first brought him to the arena, who cheerfully greeted him, saying he knew it was him all along. And as he spoke, he smoothly dodged a sneak attack from a man in red and countered with a brutal punch to the face. And at that moment, one of the bikers noticed the Yumon High uniform Ha-Yun was wearing, immediately retreating with his men while cursing their bad luck for running into someone from Yumon High, roaring away on their motorcycles and leaving only exhaust smoke behind. After which, Ha-Yun gently encouraged Jiho not to be discouraged, saying that daring to fight a whole group already proved his courage. And when he learned Jiho was receiving special training from Manhwa, he couldn't hide his envy, telling him that the student council president didn't train just anyone and that he should treasure this chance. And recalling how those bikers had fled in panic, Jiho asked what Yumon High really represented, only for Ha-Yun to smile calmly and explain that it was once infamous for unchecked campus violence until President Manhwa single-handedly reformed the school, creating the arena and establishing its rules, transforming chaotic violence into controlled one-on-one duels, warning that if either the arena or Manhwa disappeared, the school could easily return to hell, because many people were secretly waiting for that day, though neither of them knew that at this very moment Taeyang had already begun executing his destructive plan inside the arena, ordering his subordinate Parjin to provoke weak students with absurd excuses, specifically targeting those too afraid to fight, forcing them to accept matches by invoking the rule that no one could refuse a challenge, turning them into punching bags. And after Parjin finished venting, Taeyang removed his shirt, preparing to enter himself, when a boy with a center-part haircut laughed mockingly from below the stage, asking who would dare fight Taeyang, only to be instantly selected by Taeyang's gaze, terrifying him because they had never even spoken before. And as Taeyang sneered and accused him of ruining his mood, Manhwa suddenly appeared, aggressively questioning him, forcing Taeyang to feign innocence and claim it was all a misunderstanding and that he had broken no rules. And though Manhwa's face darkened because he understood Taeyang's intentions, he merely patted his shoulder and warned him not to act recklessly, temporarily calming the disturbance. And as Jiho's training continued, he slowly slowly stopped dodging Minho's punches, even seizing chances to counterattack, realizing that if he wanted to win, he couldn't just endure blows forever, and that even missing punches was better than being slaughtered. Until one moment, Minho suddenly stopped with a mischievous grin and told Jiho to follow him, leading him to an abandoned shed where a humanoid punching machine stood waiting. And Minho assumed a fighting stance, explaining this was the second stage of training and that he would demonstrate only once, instructing him to keep his feet shoulder-width apart, move lightly, extend his dominant hand precisely, rotate his waist, then slammed a punch into the dummy so hard it began smoking, leaving Jiho stunned and filled with confidence. But when he followed the steps and struck the dummy's chin, the score didn't move at all, prompting Minho to hit it again and raise the score from 1 to 2, then dismissively stating the machine was old and only responded to powerful hits, ordering Jiho not to appear before him again until he reached 9,999 points. And from that day on, Jiho spent every break punching non-stop, his appetite exploding. Yet while he was shoveling rice into his mouth, Seo-in suddenly appeared from behind and smashed his head with a food tray, pretending to greet him while repeatedly slapping his back, and Jiho clenched his teeth in rage, standing up and gripping Seo-in's arm tightly as he continued mocking him, forcing Jiho to suppress his fury because Minho had forbidden him from entering the arena before finishing training. But now, these people were openly violating the rules and causing trouble outside the arena, and unable to endure it any longer, Jiho clenched his fist, deciding to disobey orders, when suddenly, Hyun rushed forward and smashed a tray straight into Seo-in's face, coldly scolding him for pushing things too far, then quickly smiling and apologizing that it wasn't bullying, just a slip of the hand, before darkly issuing a fight invitation for that night, leaving Jiho feeling deeply guilty for dragging Hyun into trouble, only for Hyun to reassure him that he wasn't fighting on Jiho's behalf, but simply couldn't tolerate people disrupting the arena, explaining that recently, Taeyang's group had been deliberately bullying the weak with one-sided violence, threatening them by using Jiho's earlier refusal as leverage, and upon learning the truth, Jiho burned with anger, yet wondered why Hyun cared so deeply about the arena, until Hyun revealed his rarely told past, explaining that he was once overweight, weak, and bullied mercilessly, until a stranger saved him from thugs and handed him a boxing flyer, changing his life forever as a gym owner, trained him day after day until he transformed with his fists and was never bullied again, and that the arena was a place where everyone could fight fairly without oppression, which was why he wanted to protect it. And that night, Hyun and Seo-in stepped onto the stage as agreed, where Seo-in confidently struck first, but after dodging multiple attacks, Hyun landed a heavy punch that shocked him, and though Seo-in initially felt Hyun's punches lacked power, his confidence surged as he prepared a fatal body strike, only for Hyun's fist to arrive first and smash his jaw, making him spit blood as it became clear that Hyun had deliberately concealed his true strength to lure Seo-in into overconfidence, thrilling Jiho in the stands, though others warned Seo-in had never lost, making Jiho uneasy. And on stage, Seo-in unleashed furious attacks but couldn't land a single hit, eventually being sent flying. Yet he suddenly stood again with a grin and switched to a full kicking stance, catching Hyun off guard as a devastating kick smashed into him like a steel pipe, fracturing his defensive arm and turning him into a helpless punching bag, until he could no longer move and Seo-in attempted to finish him off, only for the referee to intervene and declare the fight over, forcing Seo-in to leave while mocking Jiho and promising he would be next, leaving Hyun filled with guilt for emboldening them further, though Jiho comforted him and rushed away, sprinting to the boxing shed because he had to become stronger as fast as possible, vowing not to stand by while his friends were bullied. And even if he failed countless times, he would succeed, gradually realizing his body limits and adjusting his stance, discovering the feeling of swinging with his whole body, and finally seeing the machine's score change for the first time, driving him to punch from night until dawn until his fists were torn and bleeding as the score slowly climbed, until at last the number on the punching machine finally reached 9,999. And at that same moment, Seo-yoon noticed that Jiho hadn't come to school and casually suggested going to check on him, only for Taeyang to stop him cold and say there was no need, because after Seo-yoon had just defeated Hyun, their strength had already frightened those cowards enough, and going after Jiho now would only make them look petty, explaining that the first years were already under control as planned, and that it was time for the next step. Then arrogantly greeting the third-year seniors and mocking them for once confronting the Archons, but now hiding like relics after being overthrown by Minho, provoking Seo into grabbing his collar in rage, while Taeyang calmly twisted the knife by saying it was a pity they had focused too much on solo fights back then because times had changed, and now he was secretly gathering power to completely destroy the arena, knowing that even if someone tried to repair it, there was no guarantee it could ever return to what it was. And just then Minho's phone rang with a call from Jiho, prompting him to rush immediately to the boxing facility, expecting Jiho to have finally given up. Yet the moment he saw the number on the machine, his long-awaited shock hit him, and wiping sweat from his face, Jiho said there was no time left to waste, causing Minho to smile and announce the next stage of training would be even more terrifying, before Jiho suddenly collapsing against his chest chest and falling into deep sleep. And after a day of rest, Jiho followed instructions to a construction site, cautiously inspecting the chilling surroundings until Minho appeared behind him with a serious face, explaining that Yuming High had offended many schools to secure first place and that this territory belonged to Jin Sung High, shocking Jiho as he realized he'd been brought straight into enemy land. And before he could react, Minho slammed an iron door shut and locked it, smirking as he told Jiho to escape on his own because there was no better training than real combat, leaving Jiho pounding the door in panic until the roar of motorcycles erupted behind him, and he was instantly surrounded by a gang led by the same black-clad bastard Ha-yoon had beaten before, who slid metal knuckles onto his hand and mocked Jiho for daring to show up, grabbing his head and tapping his cheeks tauntingly, only for Jiho to suddenly take a fighting stance and punch first, smashing the man's nose bloody with a second heavy blow. But just as confidence flickered, he was struck hard in the head, yet now those blows felt like nothing, as Jiho retaliated and sent him flying, overwhelming the reckless subordinates who rushed in, leaving the black-clad leader sprawled on the ground in disbelief at how the trash they once bullied now crushed him effortlessly. And as more thugs gathered, Jiho quickly seized the man's beloved motorcycle, revved it to full throttle, and sent it crashing into the crowd before sprinting away, smashing through anyone blocking his path as he ran toward the rear exit, knowing deep down that if he wanted a true one-on-one duel with Taiyang, he couldn't just run forever. So spotting a staircase, he positioned himself at a narrow corner and knocked attackers down one by one, using the height advantage to turn them into perfect punching bags until fear spread. But suddenly, he was blindsided from behind as a purple-haired fighter struck his head and kicked him down the stairs, revealing a far more dangerous opponent who ordered his men to finish Jiho within 10 minutes. And though Jiho endured the stomping with sheer pain tolerance, he knew fighting a group was hopeless, forcing his way free and charging down the stairs, grabbing the purple-haired man's head for a devastating blow before escaping the building, only to be cut off by a motorcycle as the black-clad leader was dragged behind it, and the true captain, Huk Jin, appeared licking his lips and praising Jiho's spirit, surrounding him with returning thugs while asserting Jiho was his prey. And though Jiho judged him smaller and weaker than Minho and lunged forward, his punch was effortlessly dodged as Huk Jin lifted and slammed him, then leapt and delivered a crushing rotating strike to his skull, making Jiho's vision explode as the thugs smiled nervously, knowing they'd all be toys next. And when Huk Jin lifted him by the neck, Jiho kicked his face and mocked him as cute, triggering shocked whispers because Huk Jin had been bullied as a child for being short. Yet instead of killing him immediately, Huk Jin dropped him only to wrap his legs around Jiho's neck in a suffocating choke, smashing his head mercilessly until consciousness faded. But miraculously, Jiho awakened mid-drag, remembering from past abuse how to leave a finger-width gap to protect his carotid artery, seizing a stone and smashing Huk Jin's head before sprinting again, only to be chased down until Minho appeared at the iron gate, radiating overwhelming pressure, warning that further attack would provoke all of Yuming High. And when Huk Jin arrogantly advanced, Minho knocked him out with a single punch, watching Jiho escape before calmly declaring their final training session would be tomorrow on the rooftop. Yet the next morning, Jiho found Seo Yoon attacking Ha-yoon and immediately stepped in, openly declaring war and challenging Seo Yoon to the arena, stunning him as night fell and the arena filled to bursting. Seo Yoon mocking Jiho's absence until Jiho appeared bald-headed and resolute, bizarrely offering his back to be kicked, drawing laughter from the crowd who didn't know Jiho had sensed steel plates hidden in Seo Yoon's legs. And when Seo Yoon switched tactics and struck Jiho's head, arrogantly attempting a finishing kick only to have his leg caught and his steel shin exposed as Jiho tore his pants open, shocking the audience and prompting curses for cheating. Yet Minho ordered the referee not to interfere, and in blazing fury, Jiho beat Seo Yoon down mercilessly, understanding that same fear he once felt now lived in his enemy's eyes. And as the cowardly past Jiho vanished, he crushed Seo Yoon to overwhelming victory amid cheers. And when Seo Yoon awoke to see Taiyang approaching and the crowd pelting him with trash, Jiho unexpectedly stood before him, offering a hand without hatred, saying that because of the arena's rules, he couldn't kill a cheating bastard like him today, but next time they would fight fair. So friend, if you enjoy this epic manhwa and want next episode, so don't forget to like and subscribe the channel now.